Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Saturday, 10:38. Hope everyone's doing good. It is pretty cold. Well, normal November morning. We're getting close to Turkey Day. So yeah, I've been trying to mix things up here at Film Fanatic headquarters. I've been doing a lot of music videos, shows around kind of sub genres of electronic music. I just did a couple of shows on. I did one on ambient music, and also my favorite ambient record of all time. And yeah, and I've been doing lots of music shows. I've been doing coverage or some videos on a bunch of these live recordings from Autechre's most recent tour that I think they still have a few dates left. And they finish up their American leg of the dates. I think like a week ago. I saw them about 2 weeks ago, and I think it was kind of the tail end of their U.S. dates, and then he went back to Europe, and I think they might have a couple more dates. So there's been a ton of really great, high quality live bootlegs of the shows, of the concerts. So been kind of sifting through them and listening to them, and kind of doing some reviews on some of the live recordings because some of them are just like outstandingly fantastic quality. So, and they're my favorite band, so I always go down that rabbit hole. I pretty much listen to them almost every day. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, just amazing. And I always try to balance it out. Like I really love sometimes going from like extremes of like music where you're listening to music where it's like heavy digital, it's very digitally based, or it's very dense and electronic, but then I love to go and switch gears and listen to something that is like purely acoustic. So I think it's a cool like difference of how you hear the tones in music, stylistically. Like I've been listening to a ton of Autechre, but then I've been listening to the Bill Evans trio. So it kind of a cool, you know, juxtaposition. Something that's really digital, really experimental or edgy, if you will, and then going to something where it's purely pure melody and it's all acoustic. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's a unique kind of thing for your ears and your senses, going back and forth. And I think too, it's just I really believe in you know well, just as people, but because I think especially as with musicians, you're kind of and it's for everything. You can apply it to anything, but we're all like the sum of our own parts, and the more that we have, I think the more open minded that we are as people, and the more that we're willing to check things out. Because I feel like I always keep that mindset of being a student. Like you never, you never really arrive, or you're never quite the master of something. I always feel like there's something new to learn. And I think there's things that you can individually be, you might have a series of accomplishments or things that you're like actually really proud of and you stand by it. But that doesn't mean that you are necessarily complacent and that you feel like you've arrived to that destination. So I think there's a balance of that, but I think you can be, on one hand, there's things you can be proud of and feel grounded and feel tall about, being aligned with something. But at the same time, you can have a good sense of humility and just trying to, roll your sleeves up and get back to work and just push yourselves and, and not feel like, well, I have arrived at this particular junction or this endeavor. And I think the more variety that you are open to, different styles of, it can be in literature, it can be any of the arts. Well, in this case, film, music, all of those things. Like the more open that you are to things, you just discover that much more. And I think it really can kind of give you a broader sense of things. And I think it's education in almost an academic or an educational way where it just kind of expands. You want to kind of keep hopefully growing and not be stuck in the mud per se with concepts, ideas, and your logic around situations growing and what have you. So, but anyway, I've been doing lots of music shows, and then I also have been doing some movie shows. I just did a show which I think I just uploaded on the new Edgar Wright movie, the new the Running Man remake that I think just came out this weekend. I do like Edgar Wright. Some of his movies are just simply fantastic. But I just thought it was an odd thing that of all movies that are going to be remade, it was going to be The Running Man. And then I also feel like, as much as I love Edgar Wright, and again, these are just my opinions, and you take it for what it's worth. But as much as I love Edgar Wright, I kind of feel like he's in a weird place in his career. Like he's been pretty hit or miss. I think some of his films are just fantastic. Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Shaun of the Dead. Just epic, amazing movies. But those movies are quite a few years old, and he's come out with a few films since then. Baby Driver, and then there was another film I can't remember that came out a few years back, which was like more of a ghost story horror film. And they're okay. They're not great. I don't think those movies are great, and I think he's done one other movie since then too. But they're nowhere near as good as his early work, and so he's kind of in this weird place. I don't know. And I just thought the combination of that, of a director who has done some absolutely incredible films, doing a movie or remaking a movie that was like, which I do love. I do love the original. I did a show on that, the original Schwarzenegger movie, super campy and ridiculous, but I do actually really like it. Um, but is that a movie that garners that like deserves to get remade in 2025? Just kind of odd. But anyway, so I uploaded that video. This morning, so check that out. We before I get into today's show, I last night we had a really fun show with Osmia. Although it was kind of chaotic, we played at Hey Sailor with a few bands. The main band that was supposed to play, Cushing, which is an absolutely incredible band, they had to back out the day of the show yesterday because of sickness. Everybody in the band was apparently sick. And then after that happened, or actually before that happened, before I found out, so that was a super bummer. I was really looking forward to seeing them. They're playing in Portland, I think, next month, so I'm going to try to go see them. But anyway, but actually before I heard that news, Eric, who plays in Osmia, because we're just a trio, got really sick too, and so he had to bail. So we had to do it. It was just Leo and I doing it as a duo. But we still, the show must go on kind of thing. So we still kept playing. We still kept, we weren't going to cancel. And so the first band that played ended up being us, Osmia, with just as a duo, and then a band from Lewiston, Ann Anderson, and then Gunshot Glitter from the Brewer Bangor area. We've played a couple of shows with Gunshot Glitter, and they just get better and better. These guys are like kids, and really great energy, great tunes that they write. They just get better and better. Really professional, considering they're probably like 24 at the most. Like it's just crazy. It's pretty inspiring. And there was an opening band, the first band that played, Ann Anderson from Lewiston. I didn't know anything about these guys. There's two drummers, and this music just was absolutely. They were stunning. They were so incredibly um, interesting. Lots of weird and wild time signatures. Definitely indie rock, noise rock inspired, kind of ambient too. Just an absolutely fantastic band. They played about a 35-minute set. Two songs. One song was like a longer, kind of like 17-minute rock, jazz, fusion odyssey. I mean, just wild. All instrumental music and just fantastic. That's one of the things I've been the most excited about with playing with Osmia this year. And we've been fortunate to play a lot of shows. And we just finished recording our first album, so which I'm really excited about. But one of the things I love the most about it is that we've been really fortunate to meet and to play with so many absolutely fantastic bands over this past year that otherwise I would have never have probably have come across. But absolutely fantastic. Ian Anderson, absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. It's the only way I can describe it. So, getting back to the topic at hand. So, I realized I was going through my movie collection the other night, and every now and then I come across a Blu-ray or a DVD that I realize, wait, I don't know if I bought it, but I don't know if I've even watched it, and I definitely don't think I did a show on this movie. And so I was going through my Blu-rays, and I came across Child's Play, and I'm like, fuck, I haven't seen this movie in years, and I don't even remember where I bought this. This is a beautiful edition. This came out in 1988. I was totally surprised. That happened to me about a month ago or two when I was going through my movies, and I realized I had never done. I came across the original Brian De Palma, Brian De Palma's Carrie, and I absolutely love that movie. And I realized, wait, I've never done a show on that, and I don't know. I can't remember where I bought it, and I can't remember, and I don't think I had done a show on it, and I hadn't seen it in God knows how long. But I have to say, with Child's Play, it's been even longer. Um, I literally could not remember the last time I had seen this movie. Child's Play came out in '88, and this movie, well, I watched it the other night, and it's still just awesome. It's definitely one of the best kind of killer doll films. I definitely consider this to be, well, it's a killer doll for obvious reasons film, but also a slasher movie. And this movie was such an iconic. This movie was so massively huge. I remember when I was a kid, and by the time this film had come out, I was, I was still really young, but I was like way into horror films. I had, digested all of the Friday the 13th films, the Halloween films, the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I'd been exposed to and seen a lot of the Italian horror films, Lucio Fulci. Um, had seen some Giallo films. So I was like I had been really exposed to these films. And I remember when Child's Play came out, it was kind of a phenomenon because it was something new. I mean, the doll horror movie genre isn't like a new genre, but there hasn't at that point, especially there wasn't a kind of a new monster or related to the doll horror kind of genre, or like a monster that goes on to become like iconic. And this the first Child's Play, and again it blew up. It was a massive hit. and it started a massive, massive franchise, which I do believe there was a recent TV show of Child's Play that just recently ended. A whole slew of movies. And I do like some of the other films in the franchise. They got progressively sillier and more goofy, more campy, and some of them are really great. And they got more just goofy and more ridiculous. And then there was a remake of Child's Play that came out a few years ago, which actually I remember being pretty good. Um, Surprisingly good. It was a very modern kind of take where they used a lot of um, technology that we use now. And they tried to make it very, very modern, but I remember it being pretty good. But, getting back to Chucky, the star of the movie, played by the one and only Brad Dourif, who plays Chucky. Chucky became such an iconic monster for horror films. And really, it's hard, at this point. I mean, this first movie came out in 1988, which is just, crazy. I forgot how old this film is. But watching the transfer of this on Blu-ray is really fantastic. I cannot remember where I bought this. I don't know if I might have got this for Christmas, but it's a really beautiful edition. It's got all kinds of special features on here. Um, there's a really cool interview with the director Tom Holland, and also the writer. I'm trying to remember who the writer was. Don Mancini. I did watch some of the special features on here. There's a really great interview with the director um, Tom Holland and Don Mancini. These guys were super young when they made this movie, and I guess Don Mancini had written this screenplay, and it was kind of sitting on the sidelines for a long time, and it eventually got picked up, and then it turned into this what became Child's Play, and the story was quite a bit. Well, it was pretty much still when it came to where they actually shot the movie. It pretty much was intact, but they did make some big changes to it. But again, I watched it the other night, and I cannot remember how long. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen this movie that I can't remember the last time I actually saw it. When I was a kid, I used to watch this movie all the time. I mean, when I was, it was definitely. I remember when Child's Play first came out, it really was this uh, something fresh. It really became, and it became this huge franchise, and one of the best, or one of the better kind of slasher franchises. It was commercially a huge hit, and it's a big studio film. But I think it has the other thing that's great about this movie. It has this really great level of suspense in this movie, especially the original. It's obviously, well, it has obviously because it's about a murderous doll, so it has a silly factor to it. But it's the tone of it is more serious than I remember it being, and it's way more suspenseful. You don't actually see Chucky the doll in action till quite a ways into the movie, which is really really effective. And it's got some really creepy atmosphere. The kills are pretty gnarly. Um, yeah, and the transfer of this movie on Blu-ray is just it's just fantastic. I was really impressed. Again, I can't remember where I got this movie. And like what I started to say, Chucky went on to become, this movie cemented him as being one of, well, at least at that time, a new kind of modern day horror character. You think of characters that are so iconic in our American culture, when it pertains to like horror icons, you have Jason Voorhees, you have Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and and I think Chucky is right up there. Leatherface. You'd be hard pressed to find someone, and 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 it doesn't really matter, young or old, that doesn't know who Chucky is or has not heard of Child's Play. Like it really became ingrained in our psyche. As far as like horror icons. Same thing with Jason Voorhees. I mean, if you took a group of, say, you were walking on the street and you came across like a group of people, like say five to 10 people, and you pulled them aside just randomly, and you said, "Oh, I have some questions for you," and you ask a question or a series of questions on like, have you ever heard of Halloween, or do you have any idea who Michael Myers is, or have you ever heard of Friday the 13th films? Do you know who Jason Voorhees is, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Have you ever heard of this film, or the Nightmare on Elm Street films? Or if you said asked the same question about Child's Play, you'd be hard pressed to find people who would be like, I'm not sure, I've never heard of that. What is that? Who is Freddy Krueger? Who is Chucky? It's so again, like those horror icons are just so, they're household names, and Chucky really became over the years, and with all the sequels, I don't even know how many sequels there are in the franchise. I mean, there's so many. And there's a few, the campier ones, that I actually do really like, just because they are so like insanely, well, stupid, but really fun and fantastic. But the thing that I think is really significantly different with the first Child's Play from '88, compared to the movies, all the films that came out afterwards, is it's way more serious in tone, and way more suspenseful than any of the other films. The other films just kind of got more, especially the last handful of Child's Play movies, like they got increasingly more goofy and campy, and really kind of got into having more comedic elements and things like that, and took themselves, the films took themselves much less serious. This film does not feel that way. It's way more serious than I remember it being. But the thing that really stood out was the suspense around the film, and the kind of the monster reveal, because I do, again, it had been so long since I watched this movie, but I love that they take their time, and you don't really get to see Chucky, I guess, fully realized for a while. And when you do, it's like, it's great. And you think too, like, this was from '88, so there's no CGI. It was just a reliance on animatronics and puppetry, and the shots, the scenes, and the kills, and the especially when you get to see Chucky on when he's fully realized, and he's a, he when he's in camera, it's the effects are great. Like the animatronics, the puppetry that they use, really really cool. Like it's totally holds up. And considering now, with everything, although it's things do gonna go back, there's always this full circle thing, and that has been a trend in horror, where filmmakers are starting to return to more use of practical effects and things like that, which, for me, is the number one thing. But and I think the remake had some computer generated things, but it would be cool to see it again. But I remember liking it. I remember thinking it was pretty good, and it was original. Which you know is a hard thing to find sometimes with remakes and those kinds of things. But I remember it being pretty good. It'd be cool to see it again. I've only seen it once, but the use of the animatronics and the practical effects and the puppetry, you know, where it's all hands on, everything's handcrafted, really looks good. I was impressed. Like, there's nothing dated about it. It looks really good. Like, it's really, really impressive. And yeah, it remains a classic. You know, again, I hadn't seen it in probably at least 10 years. And again, I can't remember where I got this. If it was a gift, if I bought it, and I might have watched it once since I had gotten it, but that was it. But when I watched it the like a night or two ago, I was like, wait, I can't remember when the hell I've seen this movie. But it's a classic. It's a classic. It's you know, I think if you're into horror movies, this is like essential. Child's Play, 1988. Definitely check it out and definitely seek out this really beautiful Blu-ray edition. What a difference, because I grew up watching it on, you know, cable at the time. HBO, I remember, would show when I was a little kid, when this film had come out. I remember HBO home box office used to show it a lot. Might have been on Cinemax or aka Skinemax, and I remember renting it on VHS. I don't know if I'd ever seen this movie on DVD. Now that I think of it, I probably did, but I don't remember. But I remember seeing this movie all the time on TV. It was a regular kind of part of my diet as a kid, watching horror films. Child's Play was always one of those movies that I would watch over and over again. So it's really cool to see that I forgotten that I had this really awesome upgrade. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.